You don't need a luxury kitchen to prepare gourmet meals. I want it a little on the sticky side. With a modest kitchen and some standard equipment, you can cook food that you would be proud to serve. There is my shrimp. All you need is a few helpful kitchen techniques, the ability to follow a recipe, a passion for food, and a fascination with cooking. Just follow along the rib cage. That is so good. My name is Dennis. I really do live in a mobile home, in a trailer park, and this is my kitchen. I want to make today a beef dish that's easy, not quick and easy, but it is easy. It's a slow cooked beef with herbs and spices. It's from my Moroccan cookbook and it's called a Tangia. Now, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Tangia can refer to the food itself. It also refers to the cooking vessel in which the meat is cooked. Because it's a slow cooked beef, 3.5 hours, that makes the beef tender, and therefore you can use an inexpensive cut of meat like chuck. So it's an economical dish as well. And to me, it's a perfect dish to make on a cold, rainy day because the oven's going to be on for a long time, and therefore the heat from the oven will keep your home warm and toasty. So let's make this slow cooked beef with herbs and spices. You'll need 1 kilogram of beef. That's 2 pounds, 4 ounces. This is chuck. Actually, I bought this at the store as stew meat. It was already cut up, but you can buy a piece of chuck and you want to cut it up into pieces that are about 1 inch in size. That's 2.5 centimeters. So that's the beef. Again, that's 2 pounds, 4 ounces, or about 1 kilogram. I need about 1 pound, 454 grams of onion. These are very large onions, so I'm going to use all of one and part of another. And I need them kind of medium chopped. Take the skin off first. Another layer. And there we go. And then, as I always do, I explain I have my own way of doing this rather than doing it the way the chefs do on TV. I work in quarters first. That's good enough. I don't need really big chunks like you would put in a stew. I want just kind of a medium, almost a coarse chop. All right, now the rest of my onion to do, and then I'll be ready to start assembling my food for cooking. I'm ready to start assembling now. Here's my stew meat. And by the way, if you have really large chunks, like I did, you can cut them smaller. I did, to get those down to about 1 inch each in size, which is about 2.5 centimeters. This is my onion. Again, this is 1 pound, 454 grams of onion. And then I have here 4 cloves of garlic that I minced by putting them through a garlic press. I'm going to add to this a couple of tablespoons roughly of olive oil. This is extra virgin olive oil because this is going to be cooked at a slow temperature, 275 degrees Fahrenheit, and therefore I don't have to worry about extra virgin olive oil burning or smoking. Then I want to add 2 teaspoons of something called Ras El Hanout. You can buy this in the store, or you can blend your own, which is what I did. The thing with Ras El Hanout is there is no one blend that's the perfect blend. One of my cookbooks says that every spice merchant likes to mix their own. You can get onto the internet and look up recipes for making ras el hanout. There's a lot of different recipes and they vary a lot. That's 2 teaspoons of ras el hanout. And then I'm going to be putting in 1/2 teaspoon of harissa. This is my harissa. This is more of a paste spice blend. I keep this in the refrigerator. The ras el hanout I can keep in the kitchen cupboard. Again, there's recipes on the internet for making harissa. On my website, there's a recipe for making harissa. I want to grind in there plenty of freshly ground black pepper. I'm going to open that up a little bit because I want it a little bit more coarse. You want about a 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. That should be fine. And then you want to blend this together to kind of get everything coated. That's why I'm wearing a rubber glove. And I'm going to let this sit for a few minutes. This is going to kind of act like a marinade. Oh, one thing I forgot. I want to put a good pinch of salt in there. Okay. And this will kind of act as a marinade to flavor this meat while I prep my tomatoes. I have here some Roma tomatoes. You need 3 to 4. The recipe, the original recipe, didn't mention how much by weight. I would say roughly anywhere from 9 to 12 ounces. That's 255 to 340 grams. And what I want to do with these, because I'm going to be boiling them to get the skin off, I'm cutting an X into the bottom of each one so that as they boil, the skin will break back because I've cut through it. And then they'll be really easy to peel. You boil these only for about 30 seconds. I have water heating on the stove, bringing that up to a boil. In the meantime, I'm also heating my oven up to 275 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 140 degrees Celsius. So there are my tomatoes ready to go into boiling water when the water is hot. So there I have my water coming up to a boil. I'm going to lower these tomatoes in, maybe a couple at a time, and just boil them for about 30 seconds just to loosen that skin. See, it's cracking already. I can see it cracking down the side of the tomato. That's why that X is so helpful, cut into the bottom, because it'll help the skin to break away and peel back very quickly. That should be enough. And a couple more. Let those cook, and then we'll be ready to start peeling these tomatoes. So here now are my tomatoes. Look how easily that skin just peels right off. And then what I want to do is cut the tomato in half across its middle. And I saw one TV show where they said don't waste the juice that is with these seeds, because the juice has something like 4 or 5 times more tomato flavor than the pulp itself. If you want to get rid of the seeds, fine, but save the juice. So I'm running this through a strainer. And a lot of times they say to squeeze the juice out, depending upon what you're going to use your tomatoes for. If it's going to go into a salsa, I don't want crushed tomatoes, so I just use a knife to remove the seeds. In this case, I don't care whether they're a little bit crushed or not, because it's going to go into my stew. So you see what I'm doing here. This is going to take me a few minutes. My tomatoes are all seeded. I'm just going to coarsely chop these. They don't have to be chopped too finely. These are going to cook a long time. I'm going to pull this stem section out of the top parts of these tomatoes. They're going to cook a long time in the oven with the beef, so just coarsely chop them. And before I finish this, I want to just show you what I'm going to do here. I'm just using a spoon to push the juice through my sieve. Yes, that's a plane going overhead. Some of us don't live out in the Hamptons. That's good enough. And I want to save that juice with my tomatoes. So I have the rest of these to chop. And then I'll be ready to start assembling my dish. I have a little more prep work to do here. I've got a couple of lemons. Once again, these are store-bought because my neighbor's tree, lemon tree, doesn't have any ripe lemons on it yet. I'm cutting these ends off just simply because it makes it easier to zest. I don't have to work around a big lump. And I want the zest from about 1.5 of these lemons. I'm not going to get fussy. I'm using a microplane grater because when you're zesting, you want just the yellow part. You don't want the pulp from underneath. The white pulp can add bitterness. I just want the yellow. And that's good enough. So there's my zest. Gonna get that put aside and then start working with my coriander or cilantro and parsley. I decided I wanted to juice one of these lemons and add it to my dish, even though this is not in the original recipe. I like the way lemon juice brightens up the flavor of some dishes. That's good enough. So there's the juice of one lemon. I'm going to call that optional. You need about a tablespoon of chopped coriander, otherwise known as cilantro, for this dish. So I've got some fresh cilantro that I bought at the store. I'm going to pluck the leaves off here and then chop this up. It doesn't have to be chopped too fine. This is going to almost disappear into the dish in the 3.5 hours that it's going to cook. I also need about a tablespoon of chopped fresh parsley. This is flat leaf, otherwise known as Italian parsley. I'm going to chop this up. Again, it doesn't need to be chopped up really fine. I've seen some people who just go to town on parsley. They reduce it to the texture of ground pepper. But for this, you don't need to get too fussy. Again, about a tablespoon. That's good enough right there. So there's my parsley. I'm ready to start doing my final assembly. Ooh, the smell of that, the aroma of that after it's been sitting. Here's my lemon zest. I'm going to use about 2/3 of this lemon zest. I'm going to save some for garnish. This is my lemon juice from one lemon. There's my parsley. There's my coriander. And then this is about 2 teaspoons of honey. This is just regular clover honey. You can use any honey you like. I actually prefer orange blossom honey, but I use that on things like biscuits or toast because I love the flavor of orange blossom honey. This is clover honey here. I'm gonna mix this up, get this stirred around. That'll be good enough. I want to get my herbs back in there because of course they're sticking to the spoon because of the honey. I also want to add with the juice my tomatoes. And again, give this a good stir. Mix that up. Okay, this is now ready to go into the oven. I'm going to cover this, bake it in a 275-degree oven. It's 140 degrees Celsius, roughly. I'm going to bake it for 3.5 hours. After an hour and a half, 2 hours, I'll check it for moisture. If it seems to be going dry, I can add a little liquid, such as water, or I've got some chicken stock if I need to use it. I probably won't need to add any moisture to this. Here is my Tangia out of the oven. Again, this baked 3.5 hours. I did check this after an hour and a half, and there was no problem as far as needing any liquid, and you can see it still doesn't need any liquid. I did adjust it for salt. It needed a little bit of salt. So I adjusted it at that halfway point, and then I let it cook for another 2 hours. So there it is. The meat is tender. Everything is cooked. What I have cooking on the stove right now is rice. You can serve this over couscous. You can serve it in a plate with some naan bread on the side. I like food like this best over cooked rice. So I'm just waiting for my rice to be done, then I'll be ready to plate this. My rice is now done. So how I would plate this: put a nice helping of rice on the plate, and then spoon. I'm going to slide this over. So I don't make too much of a mess. Spoon my beef. Mixture over the top. Oh gosh, that is looking good, and it smells magnificent. And then I would pool a little bit of this gravy over the top too, to soak into the rice. One thing I forgot to mention is the garnish. You can garnish this with chopped fresh parsley. I like to use sesame seeds. And now it's ready to taste. I've been smelling the aroma of this baking in the oven all afternoon. Dying to see what this tastes like. Surprisingly mild. That's wonderful. What I like about things like this is no herb, no spice comes to the front. You can't say, oh, that's cinnamon, or oh, that's red pepper flakes. No, it's all very mild and wonderfully balanced. Yet it's got a lot of flavor to it. That is very good. That is delicious. So, excuse me, I'm going to go enjoy my Moroccan Tangia for dinner. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit the White Trash Cooking website and look on the home page or in the recipe archive.